Ladies and gentlemen, introducing to the stage our Master of Ceremonies, Chaz Ebert.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening. It's actually good to be out and about again, isn't it? And especially for the tribute that we're having tonight. Please join me in welcoming tonight's honoree, Mellody Hobson. We are delighted to come together this evening to recognize her dedication and leadership in the areas of financial literacy, corporate leadership, and diversity. Her call for more opportunities for all women and people of color exemplifies the same ideals President Lincoln espoused. I'm going a little bit off script to tell you, I know Mellody, and probably even more so than what President Lincoln espoused. So, we are also pleased to welcome internationally acclaimed musician, composer, and band leader, educator, and advocate of American culture, Wynton Marsalis, who will be presenting the Lincoln Leadership Prize. Please join me in welcoming our special guest. We also welcome each of you, our generous guests, and thank you for joining us this evening for the Lincoln Leadership Prize dinner presented by the Lincoln Presidential Foundation. I'm honored to serve on the Foundation's board and as a member of the Leadership Prize Committee. To begin tonight's program, let's welcome Erin Carlson Mast, who joined our foundation as its new president and CEO last year. Erin?
Thank you, Chaz. Good evening, Ms. Hobson, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of our board, dedicated staff, and co-chairs, it gives me great pleasure to gather together and welcome you here this evening. For over 20 years, our foundation has led ambitious efforts to save historical evidence and to share it with all people, including the launch of a presidential museum and library, acquiring a highly prized collection of Lincoln artifacts, and supporting a wide range of exhibits and public programs serving over 5 million people worldwide, and we are just getting started. Last month, we announced our new partnership with the National Park Service, the largest owner of Lincoln-connected sites in the entire nation, piloting our support at the Lincoln Home National Historic Site right here in Illinois. It's a time of incredible change and opportunity. To borrow a phrase from Lincoln, this past year, we recognized a need to think anew and act anew. We identified a growing need and a crucial role. Though there are hundreds of Lincoln historic sites, memorials, and monuments, there is no other foundation focused on connecting them to each other and the challenges and resources affecting them and those carrying out the legacy of our 16th president. At each of your places, you'll see a bookmark that contains one of my favorite Lincoln quotes. The struggle of today is not altogether for today. It is for a vast future also. We recognize that there is a global need for principled, representative leadership. Our vision is to protect and expand freedom and democracy inspired by the life and work of Abraham Lincoln. On the other side of the bookmark, you'll see an invitation and link to give. The foundation has been able to accomplish its mission thanks in part to funds raised through your generous support of evenings just like this. The Lincoln Leadership Prize was created to honor exemplary leaders who, like Ms. Hobson, truly embody the character, principles, and steady progress Abraham Lincoln himself exemplified. Abraham Lincoln once noted that everyone had their own peculiar ambition. He said, "I can say for one that I have no other so great as that of being truly esteemed of my fellow men by rendering myself worthy of their esteem." Ms. Hobson is unquestionably incredibly worthy of our great esteem. We thank you for your friendship, for your partnership, and your generosity as we come together this evening to honor Ms. Hobson's remarkable leadership. Please enjoy yourselves this evening. Thank you so much.
I'd like to take a few moments to remember some individuals we lost in 2021, but whose impact on the Lincoln Presidential Foundation will carry into perpetuity. Lights, please. Susan Mogerman, a Chicago native and longtime Springfield resident, was the foundation's first chief of operations, and she was a major force behind the inception of the library and museum we helped create. Susan became the unofficial curator for Springfield and a visionary who had her feet on the ground. She will be long remembered as a tireless advocate for Abraham Lincoln. Archbishop Desmond Tutu, a true icon. He received the Nobel Peace Prize in 1984 for his tireless efforts to end apartheid, never giving up until the goal was achieved years later. He became the first Black bishop of Johannesburg and then the first Black Archbishop of Cape Town, South Africa, playing a leading role in expanding suffrage and promoting truth and reconciliation. I met Archbishop Desmond Tutu in South Africa, and when I spoke with him, I knew we talked about Abraham Lincoln, and he talked about the things that he had done with Nelson Mandela for the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, and we knew we had to give him a special prize. So in 2008, our foundation was honored to present Archbishop Tutu with the Lincoln Leadership Prize for his unwavering commitment to democratic ideals. We sat in the vault at the library, and he read a letter. He had a letter in his hand. He was wearing gloves, but he had a letter from Abraham Lincoln. And as he read it, he said, the decisions that Abraham Lincoln had to make were very similar to some of the decisions he and Nelson Mandela had to make for the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. And he said, the one thing that you have to do is forgive. He said, without forgiveness, there's nothing. Our next tributee is Josephine Minow, Jo. She was a close friend of many people in this room. She served on our board of directors from 2006 until 2010, and took on the role of honorary life director of our board after that, remaining an engaged and trusted friend of the organization ever since. Dim lights, please.
Jo loved American history, especially anything about Abraham Lincoln. The happiest experience we had was to take our children and grandchildren for a weekend at the Abraham Lincoln Museum in Springfield. We'll never forget it. And I have to add a word to my friend Mellody. It's great to have you back in Chicago.
Josephine Jo Baskin Minow had just recently celebrated 72 years of marriage to Northwestern classmate Newton N. Minow, senior counsel at Sidley Austin and former chairman of the Federal Communications Commission, and the two of them were blessed by their three daughters, Nell, who's here with us this evening, Martha and Mary, all lawyers, and she called them the three Portias. She was the author of 3 children's books, including Marty, the Broken-Hearted Artichoke, and for fun, she played the role of Henry Fonda's assistant in the 4-star movie Advise and Consent. But in addition to her wonderful family, Jo had a lifetime love affair with Abraham Lincoln, Chicago, and Chicago history, spawned by her family's presence in the city for 5 generations. She served on the boards of many of the city's most significant civic organizations, including the Chicago History Museum, Ravinia, and Know Your Chicago, and she also served as president of the Juvenile Protection Association. When she became the JPA president, board meetings were held at the University Club, which did not allow women to enter through the front door. She moved the meetings to another location that allowed all members to enter through the front door. That was just so Jo. She spent her career as a civic activist fighting for numerous issues, most notably juvenile justice, education, and the study of history. As an author, she used the proceeds from her books to help nonprofits raise funds to advance their charitable missions. For almost 7 decades, Jo and her husband, Nude, provided generous philanthropic support to numerous educational institutions, charities, and civic initiatives which had broad impact not only in Chicago, but across the nation and around the world. And in 2017, our foundation was thrilled to present them both with our inaugural Lincoln Charity for All Award. And there's one other thing. Many of you probably knew Dory Wilson, who was one of the first African-American models for Marshall Fields in Chicago. Dory passed away a couple of years ago, and I learned at that time that it was Jo Minow, your mother, was the one who fought to get black models to model at Marshall Fields and Carlson's and all the places in Chicago. So thank you for that, and thank your mother for that. Thank you for joining me for these 3 amazing individuals. And now I know we are all filled with anticipation as we build towards the presentation of the prize to Mellody. But for now, we will have to wait just a few more minutes because a magnificent dinner is about to be served. I haven't tasted it, but this is what this says here, so please enjoy your meal, and we will resume the program shortly. And now, I want you to join me in welcoming to the podium my fellow board member and chair of the Lincoln Leadership Prize Committee, Ms. Carrie Hightman. Carrie?
I'm so excited to be here. This is like, we don't do events, right? And so it's so cool to actually be an event. So sorry if I'm like shocked about being at an event, but it's really wonderful. And to be at an event honoring Mellody Hobson, what could be better? And who could deserve it more than Mellody? I can't think of anyone. So my job is to welcome you. Again, you've been welcomed, but we want to welcome you on behalf of the board of the Lincoln Presidential Foundation. I want to welcome you on behalf of the co-chairs, my co-chairs of the event tonight. So what I'd like to do right now is to recognize those co-chairs, thank them for their philanthropy, their spirit, their commitment to our good work, the good work of the foundation. So hold your applause till after I've read all the names. Michael Sachs, GCM Grosvenor, Charles and Marianne Babrinskoy, Ray and Judy McCaskey, Patrick G. and Shirley W. Ryan, Steven Spielberg and Kate Capshaw, Abbott, Ameren, Illinois, Ariel Investments, LLC, the Bloom Family Charitable Foundation, BMO Harris Bank, Chaz and Roger Ebert Foundation, thank you, Chaz, the Selmer Neal Foundation, John and Judy McCarter, John L. Now III, MG and Donna Nelson, Reputation Partners, LLC, Walgreens Boot Alliance, Inc., Wintrust Corporation, and World Business Chicago. And I gotta say, I don't remember ever having that long of a list of co-chairs for this event, so it says a lot about Mellody. So thank you all. I I was going to bring up my bookmark, but you guys all have them at your table. So for those of you who've already supported the event, we really, really thank you. And to those of you who have not, we make it easy for you to do so. We hope you will. We make it easy for you to do so. So there's bookmarks on your table that have those QR codes. So you can go in, and it links directly to our donation page. And we really, really appreciate it. We do a lot of good work, and we're doing even greater work going forward. And so we really hope that you'll be able to join us in our efforts and support our efforts to save the evidence of the past and achieve what Lincoln referred to as the unfinished work of democracy, which I guess couldn't be more important than ever nowadays. Your support is essential. So at this point, I'd like to welcome to the podium the chair of the foundation, Sergio Satch Pecori. Satch.
The Lincoln Leadership Prize, established in 2006, recognizes outstanding leaders in diverse fields. In honoring leaders of meritorious quality, the foundation celebrates Lincoln's far-reaching legacy of leadership. The prize is awarded to exceptional individuals for a lifetime of service in the Lincoln tradition, who accept the responsibilities imposed by history and demanded by conscience. Recipients of the prize receive an exact replica of the right hand of President Lincoln that was created by the American sculptor Leonard Volk in the spring of 1860. This is the 15th time that we've presented the Lincoln Leadership Prize. Past recipients included Justice Sandra Day O'Connor, Archbishop Desmond Tutu, Captain James Lovell, Tim Russert, Lech Walesa, President Bill Clinton, Steven Spielberg, the Little Rock Nine, Doris Kearns Goodwin, Neil deGrasse Tyson, Prime Minister Tony Blair, President George W. Bush, David L. Rubenstein, Gary Sinise, and now tonight's very deserving recipient, Mellody Hobson. In challenging times, Abraham Lincoln relied on his friends and family to buoy him. He even wrote, "The better part of one's life consists of his friendships." Mellody, you have countless friends and colleagues who were eager to recognize your dedication to diversity, financial literacy, and corporate leadership. Here are just a handful who wish to pay tribute to you on this, your special night.
Hobson and Lincoln. Now that's an unbeatable combination. And they share more in common than simply being two of the greats to ever come from Illinois. Lincoln said the best way to predict your future is to create it. Mellody, you have certainly embodied those words. And in creating your future, you have brightened all of ours. I so cherished our years together on the DreamWorks board. In fact, one of the hardest things about selling the company was that I no longer got to work with you day to day. During those years, I discovered you were one of the few people with a work ethic that's even more driven than mine. But here's the annoying part. We may have the same work ethic, but you're so much more likable. Your tenacity, hard work, and ambition has led to countless incredible accomplishments, which I know others will be talking about tonight. But it all has a common theme, which was also summed up by Lincoln. He said, be sure you put your feet in the right place, then stand firm. Time and again, you've put your feet in the right place, stood firm, and provided a shining example for for the rest of us to follow. This is why you're so richly deserving of this recognition tonight. A big hug, a huge congratulations. Love you.
Congratulations, Mellody, on being named the 2022 recipient of the Lincoln Leadership Prize. I'm honored to call you my friend. You've been an amazing peer and mentor to so many of us women in business, and me in particular. I stand in awe of your voice and leadership as a force for good in the corporate world, in promoting financial literacy and in diversity, equity, and inclusion. Just one example of our many accomplishments that I admire is that you recently, in your leadership with Project Black, you secured $200 million in funding. And that's just the beginning. And that will fill a massive diversity gap in the corporate America supply chain. Mellody, thank you and congratulations. You're a wonderful person and so deserving of the Lincoln Leadership Award.
Mellody Hobson, I love you. When I heard you were receiving the Lincoln Leadership Prize, I just smiled. I can't think of anybody more deserving of this award in the spirit of Abraham Lincoln than you. We've been at each other's side for 20 years now at Starbucks, and for the last year or so, you have been the Starbucks chair. My respect, my love, and my admiration for you is above reproach. When I think about Abraham Lincoln, his leadership, his courage, his commitment to social justice, his commitment to diversity, I can't think of anybody more deserving than you. You are a true servant leader. You are brave. You are everything that this award represents. And you embody the very conscience of Abraham Lincoln. Mellody, congratulations. I love you dearly. I wish I was there in person tonight to celebrate with you, but I'm there in spirit celebrating you. Congratulations, and have a wonderful evening.
A few months ago, I was told that Abraham Lincoln had agreed to join the selection committee for the Lincoln Leadership Prize. As soon as I was told that, I had no doubt that Abraham Lincoln would steer the committee to the only perfect selection, Mellody Hobson. Because like Lincoln, Mellody is committed to Illinois, committed to social justice, committed to making the country a better place, and is actually doing so. In fact, Mellody is a unique individual. I've never met anybody quite like Mellody, and I can't remember when I've ever seen anybody do so many things so well, so frequently. My only regret about Mellody is that, honestly, she's perfect, and I kind of feel inadequate around perfect people. So Mellody, please don't be so perfect in the future, but congratulations on winning this award, and congratulations on getting Abraham Lincoln to vote for you.
Congratulations, Mellody, on this absolutely amazing, amazing honor. Like President Lincoln, you have shown extraordinary leadership in the toughest of times. When times get rough, you always show up and make a difference. You're always there when others are fearful. You're willing to step in and fight for what's right at those critical times, wherever you happen to be in your leadership roles. At Ariel and every organization that you have touched throughout the nation, you have demonstrated a constant commitment to fighting for fairness, fighting injustice. You have this ability to speak out, even when it's really uncomfortable, to correct the things in our society that are just not right, that are just not fair. You are the ultimate teammate who always finds a way to get the job done with excellence, and you have a passion to making sure that you're helping others along the way. You understand that when you speak up and fight and do things in the right way, our country becomes a better, stronger country, and you've demonstrated your excellence at everything you do, at every moment of the day, throughout your entire career. So again, congratulations, Mellody. It's a well-deserved honor.
So Buckminster Fuller, when people would speak to him, they would say hello, and he would say, "I see you." One of our most basic desires in life is to be seen, to be acknowledged by, and to connect with others. I am so glad that Mellody Hobson refused to go through this society invisible. As our First Lady Michelle Obama said, she came from a modest background, and she did so many things, the first to do so many things. One of the things that I noticed about her is she remains very compassionate, very kind. And it's this kindness and compassion and this empathy for others that I think has propelled her so far. And I'm proud to call her my friend. And I'm proud that we've given this award to presidents and prime ministers and astronauts and everyone. To me, Mellody Hobson was I was so happy when our committee voted unanimously to present it to Mellody Hobson. Just meant so much to me. The Lincoln Leadership Prize will be presented this evening by internationally acclaimed musician, composer, and band leader, educator, and advocate of American culture, Wynton Marsalis. As a composer, his body of work includes over 600 original songs. He was the founding director of jazz studies at the Juilliard School, and he's also a globally respected teacher and spokesman for music education. In 2001, he was appointed Messenger of Peace by then United Nations Secretary General Kofi Annan, and he received the National Medal of Arts in 2005 and the National Medal of Humanities in 2016. And tonight, he will present his friend, Mellody Hobson, with the prestigious Lincoln Leadership Prize Award. Ladies and gentlemen, Wynton Marsalis.
All right. I'm so deeply honored to present this prize to such a worthy recipient. We gather here tonight in this magnificent ballroom to meet the open-hearted hospitality of our host with our very best manners. It's uplifting to see everyone in such fine form and eager spirits, celebrating a fellow citizen who has been so exemplary in her fulfillment of the democratic imperatives that were baked into our Constitution, yet still struggle to be our Constitution. And here we are, dressed in our Sunday's finest, going about the serious business of casting a brighter, more colorful light upon the legacy of our greatest president with the story of a heroine whose countless acts of sacrifice, leadership, and bravery in a career of service to the American cause would not be believable if it were the subject of one of her husband's films. It could only be as it is, the absolute truth. Because these are times of sustained divisiveness in our nation, the likes of which perhaps has not been seen since the 1850s, during the ascendancy of the man in whose name this honor is endowed and bestowed. It is even more crucial that we properly elevate tonight's candidate. We've actually found someone who has added footsteps to the trail of our most respected forefather. Someone possessing that rare combination of erudition, high-mindedness, and integrity, who also has a down-home sophistication and naturalness that would lift the spirits of old honest Abe and make him even a little light on his feet. And I don't know if y'all know, Mr. Lincoln was many magnificent things, but I don't think he was known for his dancing. As a matter of fact, when Mary Todd was asked by him to join him on the dance floor upon their first meeting, she recalled him saying, "I want to dance with you in the worst way." And she went on to observe that was exactly the way he danced. Now, receiving an award is not as easy or fun as it may seem. Even one that does not require a public winner and several game-faced losers. The listing of your accomplishments and recognitions are a source of pride and shame, exhilaration and embarrassment. After sitting through a roll call of spectacular accolades, an honoree doesn't know whether to beam, blush, or blanch, to be happy or to hide. And everyone also awkwardly smiles and kind of looks on with pride or pity, with enthusiasm, apathy, or envy. Or we applaud on cue, then go right on into the night to comment on the quality of the meal, the well-worn topics of the day, or we enjoy the famous familial dysfunction after an important event fight. Tonight, however, because of our intense need to come together, I would like us to take an extra moment and relax. Let's not rush. Let's look around. Let's sit and feel the weight of each other's presence and focus the power of our intentions on who and what we are here to celebrate. It's our way of being us, and a special heroine who makes us proud of being ourselves. Let's consider the distance between the aspirations of President Lincoln and the achievements of tonight's honoree. You know, in the known history of our planet, the signing of the Emancipation Proclamation was the very first time an entire slave or serf class had ever been suddenly and dramatically freed. Even draped in the multi-layered quilt of genius, Mr. Lincoln could not have possibly imagined a black lady using that freedom to make it possible for excluded generations of Americans to participate in the type of economic enfranchisement and even wealth that American business, politics, and culture could provide for those in the know, or, in the words of New Orleans music, in that number. Perhaps the rhyming irony of this awarding is the selection of someone who is a transcendent example of where freedom can go when it is loosed upon the world and given just enough space to squeeze under and through cracks and around corners to become a hurricane of feeling in search of space, to stretch and strain the constraints that allowed it to grow to such stubborn strength in the first place. We have with us someone who went up and down known but not well-trodden paths, to ascend tricky and sometimes treacherous ladders of achievement, only to continue rising to regions that had not yet even been fathomed, let alone surveyed. And here's someone just sitting here still, just as cute as can be. Looking like her own daughter, dancing on the pixie dust of dreams, to construct solid pathways into a much more glorious future for so many more, not just like her, but like all of us here in this room tonight. That's why we sit here with such feeling and warmth and love. She is one of our most dedicated and decorated citizens, and an unquestioned symbol of valor. She has said, "I've gotten questions that suggest that life is a zero-sum game, that if Black and Latinx people are winning, white people are losing, and we're just not about that. We're about growing the opportunities so that more of us can be included. It doesn't mean that someone loses something. I want y'all to stay with me. I'm not rushing. She has a penetrating vision that sees across generations into the irony and implications of a civil rights movement occurring roughly a century after a civil war that cost some 850,000 American lives, including that of President Lincoln. And she understands all too well her place in contemporary history, armed with a more abstract perception that the social gains of the Civil War were lost with the premature ending of a brief 12-year Reconstruction period. Well, Mellody is smart, deeper than smart. She possesses that timeless feeling and understanding of the nuances of history that escape us. She put it together. That's also roughly the same journey we would travel after the Civil Rights Movement and the assassinations of both Kennedys and Martin Luther King Jr. when a mini reconstruction of another 10 to 12 years, also known as the 70s, was prematurely ended and the gains of the Civil Rights Movement assaulted and slowly rolled back even to this moment. If I'm to put her in her proper context this evening, I must mention that the original March on Washington in 1963 was for jobs and freedom. The jobs and economic empowerment part that was so eloquently argued for by the United Auto Workers president, Walter Reuther, in his powerful speech on that historic day, was summarily sacrificed for the freedom and equality dream part. And once again, a reconstruction for all would not be possible. Now, the waters of justice, muddied by over a century of abject failure and some achievement between 1877 and 1980, could be mixed into any type of cocktail to suit the taste of the maker. And it was. But because freedom goes where it goes and shows up in the form it shows up in, and because human experience is additive, here comes someone born during that short Reconstruction who is lifting what was dropped a second time. Then it's much heavier to lift. Here's someone who is rising past all limitations to point us due north. Her career of service in creating educational, economic, and cultural opportunities for the underexposed picks that heavy ball up. Her revolutionary concept in wealth distribution, using the macroeconomics of resourcing new businesses to create a scalable model for a more equitable trade for more of the people, well, that carries that ball across the goal line. In the spirit of President Lincoln meets Dr. King, Ida B. Wells meets Fannie Lou Hamer. She sees in the Constitution itself the flexibility that is a mandate for change. The Founding Fathers knew that the business of democracy would never be finished. President Lincoln knew this enterprise is a daily battle. Shirley Chisholm knew that every step up is not a step down. And here is tonight's celebrated citizen, gone about the business of creating a new world of possibilities. Tonight's champion has said, there are so many things that have been tried for decades now, and these things aren't working. It's time to be bolder and to try new things. And so it's the idea of what America is all about, what opportunity really is, and making sure that people understand their past doesn't have to be their future, and that we can change this narrative. These words are not a call to action for blacks or for women. They're actually a siren call, a wake-up call, and a call to action for all of us. Her achievements are our achievements. The award she will receive brings us here tonight. But the real reward we already have seen demonstrated all night long. It's the admiration, respect, and love from peers who are also accomplished in many fields. It's the taking of time to revel in the greatness and the sacrifice of an exemplary citizen and the acknowledgement of the countless sleepless nights and days fraught with turmoil and conflict trying to raise us all to our best selves. It's ultimately in the subtle glances and nods, the handshakes and hugs and words of something far deeper than admiration. It's the collective and communal recognition of what has been sacrificed to ease the road that we all travel, to lift many you will never see or encounter, to proselytize, cajole, scheme, beg, plead, borrow, and sequester for the higher cause that remains what it has always been, the enrichment of the human story through the raising of the human soul to higher ground in the context of community. I'm so honored to be here tonight to honor this fantastic lady. She is beyond special. She is a blessing, an angel. And when it's time for her to be canonized, please call me. I'm going to play "Oh When the Saints Go Marching In" as our 2022 Lincoln Leadership Prize recipient stands to acknowledge our generous applause and eventually comes to the stage. Ladies and gentlemen, Mellody Hobson.
Oh, that's right. Wow. Well, first, I had to bring the Kleenex. I really want to thank the board for this great opportunity. It's overwhelming. I mean, there's so much to be said, but I'm just really honored to be standing here amongst you and to be honored by you. I want to thank Chaz for being such an awesome MC and such a great friend, such a loving spirit. I bonded with her the moment that I met her, and of course we had these husbands who love movies. And my co-CEO, John Rogers, who is my family, and from the day I met him, gave me the opportunity to be the person that I am. So I'm really grateful for him. And Wynton, I should not say this out loud. I really shouldn't, because it'll probably be in the paper. But I always joke with George, if I hadn't found the love of my life, my soulmate, I would have married Wynton. Because he's so great and so smart and so special and so talented. And he does such great work for young people. I so admire him. He's brilliant, and you obviously see it when he speaks. So it's amazing to be in his space, amazing. And I'm so honored, and I always feel so lucky that I can even talk to him. And I also want to acknowledge my sister is here. I call her the good sister, Pat. That's what we call her at home. She's my good sister. She always is rooting for me, and she always looks after me. And My sisters are much older than me. She won't like me saying that. So I had a lot of mothers. But my sister, Pat, is always in my corner. So I'm really, really grateful that she's here. Thank you, Pat. I have to tell you, I love Chicago. Everyone who knows me knows that. There is nowhere I would rather be. If you hear I'm in California, I want to be in Chicago, just so you know that. That's what love will do. And I do commute back and forth. I was born and raised here in Chicago, and if you grew up in Illinois, you know a lot about Abraham Lincoln, right? I mean, after all, we are the land of Lincoln, right? I know other states fight about that, but we know the truth. I was probably 10 years old when the subject first came up in school. And I thought about it. We learned that Lincoln was born in a log cabin. Of course, we all know that. We know that he was a tall, bearded guy. He wore a stovepipe hat. I mean, what is that? That his nickname was Honest Abe, that he studied law at home. That's hard. We also somehow all know that he was the 16th president. I mean, it's like you only know Washington was 1 and Lincoln was 16. Name another number, okay? Okay, I can do Obama, 44. Okay, that's it in my whole repertoire of numbers. We know those numbers. Of course, we know he wrote the Gettysburg Address, and we know his famous, such an important document, Emancipation Proclamation, freed the slaves. Okay, so we know this about him. Now, for extra credit, I actually memorized the 277-word Gettysburg Address back in the day when I was about 10 years old. In fact, I could probably still recite a lot of it right here, right now. 407 years ago, we all know how it starts. Our founding fathers, we all know the story, conceived upon this continent a great new nation, conceived in liberty, dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. You know it goes something like that. Okay, I'm gonna stop repeating it. I'll stop now. Instead, I wanna jump to the end, because the one thing about this document that is 159 years old is that when you read its words, I have to say, it can still take your breath away. It's pretty amazing. In it, Lincoln calls upon us, the living, to be dedicated here to the unfinished work, he acknowledges that, which they who fought here have thus far so nobly advanced. Unfinished work, he knew it wasn't done. Then he goes on to say, he pushes us, resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain. He goes on to say that the nation shall have a new birth of freedom. And then finally, those great words that we know so well, that the government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth. Such profound, heavy, weighty words. At 10, I memorized these lines, but I could not, it would not be possible to really understand the gravity of them at that age. It's just not possible. I never would have guessed that 8 score later, because we learn a score around 10 years old, of course, 8 score after it was written, that it would still be so significant and so relevant today. Now, back in grade school, for me, everything about Abraham Lincoln seemed huge. The great emancipator, as he was called, he loomed over history like the giant that he appeared to be. I mean, obviously, he was very tall. We all know that. But when you're a kid, everything seems bigger than it actually is. We also know that too. Except here's the thing. In looking at him today, as my 53-year-old self, Lincoln has only grown in stature, and it has nothing to do with his lanky frame or his really tall hat. The enormity of Lincoln's actions have become more apparent to me. As a child, you knew slavery was bad, and you take for granted Lincoln ended it. But you don't really think through the logistics of how do you actually get that done. And I'll admit, it wasn't until I was told I was receiving this award tonight that I started to deeply contemplate how this could have all gone very differently. And if it had, I would not be standing here today. As many know, Lincoln publicly opposed the ownership of Black people as property at a time when a lot of people pushed back really hard. It would have been far easier for him as president just to maintain the status quo. But, as my friend Steven Spielberg so beautifully captured in his film, Lincoln was determined to find a way to turn principle into practice. He remained focused on freeing the slaves. He fought for what was right, and ultimately, he died for it. We owe him. I owe him. You know, the term impact is now one of those buzzwords that's so overused, but the word strongly applies to Lincoln. His impact changed the trajectory of US history. And not just by having an impact on Black people who suffered from what he called the monstrous injustice of slavery itself, but by having an impact on everyone, every single person. He moved America towards a more true republic. And that lasting impact has been felt by every generation since. Now, I want to be clear. Heroes are human beings, and by their very nature, human beings are imperfect. So, I will try not to over-romanticize Lincoln, the man. Still, like Nelson Mandela, Dr. King, Rosa Parks, he represents an ideal of social consciousness. He reminds us that awareness does not fix problems. Actions fix problems. This is where I see a great overlap between leadership and service. Leaders carry a torch for a cause to illuminate a path for others to follow. But here's the beautiful thing about carrying a torch. You can use a torch to light one other torch, or you can use a torch to light 1,000 other torches, or millions of other torches. And no matter how many torches you light, as long as your torch, your will, burns bright, you can keep lighting more. Consider how many torches Lincoln lit. A few years ago, I heard the Little Rock Nine accepted this award, which is amazing. It is astonishing to think that it was a full 94 years after Lincoln delivered the Gettysburg Address that these 9 students courageously walked past a jeering, belligerent mob and desegregated a Southern high school. They lit torches with their bravery. As an adult, the lesson of Lincoln and of all of my heroes is that the right thing does not just happen. We make it happen. We make the right thing happen. I also remind myself, it doesn't take much for things to go wrong and for the ideals that we hold so dearly to be lost. It's fragile. Like slavery and segregation, many of the issues this country faces today are complicated and massive in scale. That just means we have to work harder and do more. And I want to stress that making the world a better place does not have to be burdensome and weighty and feel bad. There can be joy too. I will never forget standing in a crowd in front of the Lincoln Memorial with my husband at President Obama's 2009 inauguration, singing our hearts out to Woody Guthrie's "This Land Is Your Land." Now, again, this is a song that we learned as children. And we may not have really understood what we were learning. Maybe we thought it was catchy, maybe even a little hokey. But as an adult, when you listen to the lyrics, "This land is made for you and me," you realize it's not hokey, it's profound. In that moment in DC, with the giant Lincoln in the backdrop, with Barack Obama standing on that stage, it was as if I had heard the song for the first time. Those words, I have to tell you, pierced my soul. This land was made for you and me. Even though our country did not always know that, Lincoln knew. Now, I have to tell you, I'm so grateful to be here in the company of all of you and so many people who have received this award in front of me. I also appreciate the fact that I can reflect on the tall guy with the stovepipe hat. When I was in my 20s, I received this unbelievably great advice from a really dear friend who told me, Mellody, never, ever, ever limit your life and how you think of it to your own imagination, because your life will far exceed anything you can possibly imagine. Well, tonight is more than the 10-year-old Mellody riding on a CTA bus to school every day could ever have imagined. Thank you very much.
Your light is shining so brightly, so brightly. I have to ask for our portraitist, Bill Chambers, as well as our CEO, Erin Carlson Mast, and board chair, Satch Pecori, to come to the stage, because we have a tradition that we started years ago here at the Lincoln Foundation of having a portrait of our honoree painted. And this year, we get to unveil yours. So will you please join us over here? There's Bill. Bill. I am very rarely at a loss for words, but I am tonight because I just felt that so deeply. And ladies and gentlemen, we want to thank you again for joining us tonight and for your generous philanthropic support. Have a wonderful rest of your evening.